Tonight, a ministry executive overseeing Legacy Christian Academy resigns amidst allegations over his conduct with former students. Also, preserving the land and Indigenous identity by reintroducing bison on the prairies. Plus, how one woman who received a heart transplant is honoring her donor through song.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, December 22nd, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams in for Sam McKeag. Thanks for joining us tonight. A high-ranking executive in the Ministry of Education has resigned from his position amidst allegations of inappropriate conduct. He was supposed to be making sure a private Christian school was operating properly. Instead, two women say he hit on them. Laura Sharpaletti has more.
The province had appointed Mike Walter to oversee Legacy Christian Academy after former students claimed they'd faced abuse at the private Christian school. Last week, some of the students who have alleged abuse released an episode of a podcast raising concerns about their interactions with Walter. The two women, who are plaintiffs on the class action lawsuit, described Walter's behavior as gross and inappropriate. They said on the podcast that in one instance, Walter invited one of the students to meet for drinks to discuss the school, but had no new information to share. Jennifer Beaudry says he was just interested in getting drinks with her. Another student claims Walter once invited her to stay overnight at his house. Both students say they didn't expect the government official to be in contact with them so often.
And then as things got more regular, they also got more personal and more uncomfortable. And then I started questioning what was really going on. And then, ended up having to cut off the relationship.
It really doesn't feel great that these so-called systems that are in place that are supposed to be the ones regulating, supposed to be the ones doing the checks, there's still abuse going on in those systems against other abuse victims. Like, it's quite baffling, actually.
In a statement to CBC, Walter says he regrets the choices he made regarding contact with Beaudry and Erickson. He confirms he has resigned as an assistant deputy minister within the education ministry and says it was for personal reasons. Laura Sharpaletti, CBC News, Regina.
People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernier has been found guilty of violating COVID restrictions. It happened at a rally in Saskatoon in May of 2021. Bernier was one of the speakers at this rally to protest COVID restrictions. A public health order in place at the time banned outdoor gatherings of more than 10 people. In a trial that was held over several months, Bernier and other defendants argued they had been unfairly targeted and had their constitutional rights violated. A written decision on the case was published this week. The judge examined the evidence against 43 defendants and found 36 of them guilty, including Bernier. Well, as we celebrate the holiday season, often by giving gifts, a Regina woman says she received the greatest gift of all, a life-saving heart transplant. CBC's Tyreek Reed has more on how she's now paying tribute to her organ donor.
For Adrienne Mahoney, this song is close to her heart, a heart that once belonged to someone else. She created the music in honor of her donor and the donor's family.
Gratitude and words, I found myself at a loss. I couldn't properly articulate in a letter format a thank you. And so that's where I turned to what I knew best, and it was music. And I said, if I can't use words to describe the magnitude of my gratitude and my family's gratitude, maybe music can be the vehicle or the way to express the unexpressible, if you will.
6 years ago, Mahoney suffered heart failure and was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease. In 2019, she received a heart transplant. After the surgery, she began to compose a song. But then a cancer diagnosis and multiple surgeries made her worry she wouldn't live to see the song's completion.
The hardest times for me, it became the beacon to keep pushing towards, because half of it wasn't recorded yet. And as I experienced more heart problems and cancer and other issues, finishing the next track became the focus.
And her band promised they'd continue on with the project if she died.
That's always been the agreement between the musicians, that it would go forward with or without her, but thank goodness it's with her this time.
The song is normally played with a 10-piece band and includes sounds from the medical device that kept her alive.
And she wanted a bunch of that messy noise and that kind of, confusing, sometimes beautiful, sometimes disgusting, sounds all in there to not leave out any of the experience that she went through.
But Mahoney says the most special part of this song is its ending, when you hear her donor's heart beating.
I wanted to give them what I thought was the biggest gift I could give a musician, and it's to share their loved one's voice one last time. And for me, I see that heartbeat that ends the track as the most important voice on this entire thing. And so if it gives one more chance, one more acknowledgement of the sacredness of this and the sanctity of it, that was always my intention.
Mahoney has written a letter to the family of the donor and knows she may never know their names or meet them, but hopes somehow they'll hear her song. Tariq Reed, CBC News, Regina.
Well, the bison is an important symbol of Indigenous identity and culture, and also has implications for the future of the prairies, rehabilitating grasslands and conserving water in a time of climate change. As CBC's Karen Pauls explains, it's a message ecologists and Indigenous leaders are trying to spread.
There we go, good job.
A ceremony honoring an animal with deep spiritual significance.
Feels like family to me.
Anthony Tachin's family is keeper of this herd.
These animals have saved our lives. They provided food and weapons out of the bones, tools, the hides for clothing, the teepees. It did everything for us. So going forward, we decided, you know what, it's our turn to give back. It's our turn to look after them.
This territory, from the Canadian prairies to Mexico, used to have tens of millions of bison.
After colonial settlements, essentially the bison were eliminated, slaughtered off this continent to the point where they almost went extinct.
Gila Shimon says that coincided with government assimilation policies for Indigenous peoples, and it had consequences for grasslands and the prairies. Replaced by farmers' fields, they are now considered at-risk ecosystems.
The native grasses are gone, the microbes that are so essential for everything that's living within those soils is gone. And we're just losing it at an unprecedented rate.
And that's where the bison helped, grazing, then relieving themselves, reintroducing nutrients and spreading seeds, rolling in the ground, creating wallows where rainwater can gather, ecosystems for insects, birds, and small animals. But there aren't enough of them, and they can't move freely.
If we don't allow them to follow their natural tendencies, their natural behaviors, then we're constraining their ability to be that keystone species, to be that ecosystem engineers. So we need to think about ways of making room for bison to return and to do their magic.
That magic recently came to the Métis Nation in Saskatchewan. 25 female bison transferred from Grasslands National Park to Batoche.
It really is symbolic in that way, that the bison are back on our land where, people fought and died for Métis rights.
Michelle Leclerc says the goal is to grow the herd to 150 bison for food, education, and land revitalization.
We're related to the buffalo. We're related to the land. We're related to each other. And one of the things for our elders and for us is to ensure that we have a healthy environment for everyone.
Back in Manitoba, this First Nation is canceling agricultural leases of its land, turning it back into grasslands and then over to the bison, preserving the land and the living things that rely on it. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Sioux Valley, Dakota Nation, Manitoba.
Well, it sure was a gorgeous start to the day in Regina. Not a lot of snow, of course, but look at that frost really popping against the gorgeous blue sky. So is this how things will look continuing into the holiday weekend? I'll be back with your forecast after the break. Stay with us.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
Welcome back. Well, a glimpse at the last little bit of the sunset in Regina this evening. Days are getting longer now, of course, now that we're past the winter solstice, but we are still waiting for snow as we head into Christmas. And if you're wanting a white Christmas, well, historically in Regina and Saskatoon, actually there's a pretty good chance. We're usually somewhere around 90%. There was a better chance earlier in our records from 1960 to 1984 than there has been in the last 25 to 30 years or so. The percentage of white Christmases has dropped. Some researchers believe that is, of course, due to climate change, and that number doesn't even take into account 2023 there. So, of course, going into a brown Christmas of our own through much of the province. Of course, doesn't help that we are seeing mostly sunny conditions through the province. The north, the only part of the province seeing a bit of cloud cover, and that's been a theme the last few days. We are expecting, though, a little bit of increasing cloudiness through south and central as we head through the day tomorrow. Yes, that is a little bit of snow in southern Saskatchewan tomorrow. That'll move along the southern border. There is the possibility that we could get some flurries even in Regina, maybe even as far north as Saskatoon heading through tomorrow afternoon. But for Christmas Day, high pressure quickly chases that out of the way, and we are left with sunshine, not just for Christmas Day, but for a lot of the next week. That system likely not going to bring very much snow if it does materialize. Places like Assiniboia, Weyburn, Estevan, maybe as far north as Moosomin, looking at about a centimeter or so there. We will see winds pick up a little bit overnight and into tomorrow as that system starts to pass us by, but then high pressure moving in really starts to calm those winds down. Now, we've had some pretty warm weather recently, and Environment Canada sharing this data with us today. We are not expected to hit record temperatures through much of the province as we head into Christmas Day. The number on the left that you see there in each location is the record high for December 25th. And the number on the right is where we are forecast to be. So a lot of us, not even by very close, or by a long shot, I should say, is what we're expected to get to. So no records expecting to be broken for warmest Christmas Day anywhere in the province. But it will still be warm nonetheless. Above seasonal, we're looking for a high of 0, increasing cloudiness and maybe some flurries in Regina. Tomorrow, again, winds picking up. And then after that, the sun comes out. A little chillier for Christmas Eve day before things really warm up heading into next week. For Saskatoon, again, there is just a slight chance that you could see flurries from that system heading into tomorrow. But then as we get into Christmas Eve day and Christmas Day itself, temperatures starting to rebound, sunshine for you as well. The whole week looking nice. So if you're looking to go tobogganing or do any Christmas break activities, well, you and the kids may just have to stay inside or maybe go for a walk instead.
Garlic, cinnamon, clove, there's some nutmeg in there, lots of herbs, parsley, sage, rosemary if I can get it, thyme, lots of black pepper.
Well, that is quite a long list of ingredients for a special dish. These are the classic meat pie, otherwise known as tourtière. They are a staple during Christmas for many French-Canadian families. Chef Malcolm Craig is taking his handmade pie shop production to the next level to get ready for Christmas. Unfortunately, they are all sold out for this season, so guess you'll have to make your own. Stay with us. We're back after the break. Well, a whirlwind of controversial political issues dominated the news headlines in Saskatchewan this year. The pronoun policy, healthcare issues, and the cost of living crisis were all front and center at the legislature. And it's top of mind for a lot of people living here. Our provincial affairs reporter Adam Hunter sat down with official opposition leader Carla Beck to discuss how things went and her political hopes for 2024.
You talked about cost of living a lot this year, also healthcare. What are your concerns when it comes to how people are able to access healthcare in the province right now?
I mean, I guess the biggest concern is around people's ability to access, whether it was family doctors. We talked about the fact at one point in recent months, there were no family doctors available in our largest city in Saskatoon who were able to take new patients. The number of emergency rooms that were on bypass in recent months, concerns about diagnostics at the Pasqua Hospital here, and of course the inability of women in the southern part of the province to get access to mammogram care, for example, in this province. Those concerns continue to be raised alongside the concerns of healthcare workers who report working chronically short, forced overtime, not being able to take vacation, and they're signaling, as they have been for years, that there's a crisis in our healthcare system. There's a crisis in terms of retaining healthcare staff, and they really want to be part of the solution. That's not something we've seen the government take them up on.
When it comes to what happened before the sitting even started, we had an emergency session called by the Premier to put through a parental rights bill, use of the notwithstanding clause. Your caucus was outspoken about their opposition to how that was being handled and the contents of that bill in some cases. When you look back on that and where we are now, what are your thoughts on how that was handled and what it means for students and families in the province?
Yeah. So right after the by-elections, and again, at a time when we'd been talking to thousands of people in the province, this was not an issue that was raised by anyone that I talked to on the doorstep. We did see it raised by the Saskatchewan United Party in the by-election, particularly in Lumsden. The government's response to that was calling an emergency session, something we haven't seen in this province for a quarter century, to deal with an issue that even the Premier could not point to a single instance where the concern that they were bringing forward actually had happened in the province. So I think that's deeply concerning. First of all, it was a highly divisive issue. There's no debate about the fact that it's important for parents to be involved in their children's education. I've not heard anyone who doesn't support that. We certainly support that. It's something that we've heard teachers and parents and school boards talk about the need for improving that home and school communication for years. That is not what the government sought to do, I'm afraid. I think this was about distracting from their own problems, some of the results in the by-elections, and an attempt to further divide instead of actually tackle the issues that are facing Saskatchewan people. Like I said, like we've talked about, cost of living, healthcare, or even the long list of issues that we see in our classrooms, decreasing reading rates, chronic underfunding, concerns about children not getting the supports that they need. I think the other thing that was surprising about that, or perhaps not, after that emergency session, you saw the Premier not want to talk about it at all, sort of washed his hands of it, which was incredibly frustrating, given that they knew also going in the very real concerns that introducing this bill, that inflaming this debate was going to have on already vulnerable kids in our classrooms.
Another divisive point in the last couple of months was the protest that happened here at the legislature and kind of the fallout, even a few weeks after, with Government House Leader and the Premier making some accusations about your caucus, about the party, accusations of anti-Semitism, and even, as recently as a couple of weeks ago, characterizing those who came to protest as rioters. Mm-hmm. What is your reaction to that and that event and some of the characterizations by the government?
Mm-hmm. I think, first of all, again, the willingness of this government to lean into division, to pit groups in our province against each other, to use inflammatory rhetoric like we saw from the Premier and especially from the Government House Leader, I think is very irresponsible. Of course, the events of October 7th, the subsequent events, hostages and the particularly the killing of civilians in huge numbers, is something that is deeply impactful, especially to those in this province who have direct contact or family members living in the region. As I said at the start of this, I've said several times since, as leaders, I think we have a responsibility when you see such a highly charged, emotional, impactful issue as this, to not lean into division and inflame rhetoric, as we saw the government do, but to look for that common ground, to increase understanding, to have empathy, to sit with groups and have them express what their concerns are. That was the path that we chose, and I was deeply disappointed, frustrated, and frankly angry with the path that we saw the government take on this.
And it's the holiday season. Do you have a holiday tradition, a family thing that you're looking forward to doing to take your mind and off this place over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, we will be in the city for a little bit, and we'll go out to Mom and Dad's. I have a brother that lives in Cardiff, one in Meadow Lake. Their families join us. It's a natural ice rink in Lang, so we'll see if it's not looking good for being able to go for a skate or go out to Redlegs for. There's a slough south of town we like to go out to go skiing or walking around on the ice. Maybe that's not looking so great. But the biggest thing is just that time spent with family and having time to reflect on how lucky we are to live in this beautiful province, all of the riches that we have, but most importantly, the time to be able to spend with family, relaxing, recharging, and getting ready to head into the election year in the new year.
Thanks for your time, Carla.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
Well, we will start tomorrow on a sunny note in Regina with a temperature of around -6, but the clouds will build in pretty quickly as we head through the morning, and by the afternoon, by the noon hour, there is a chance that we could see some flurries. Keep in mind those winds also picking up from the northwest. In Regina on Christmas Day, we're looking for a temperature of around -2 with a lot of sunshine. Wind not expected to be an issue for us then. Heading into Saskatoon's forecast, we're looking at a temperature of around -3 tomorrow morning in the city. And then as we head into the afternoon, again, cloud cover, less of a chance of flurries for you. But of course, the wind picking up too. And in Saskatoon, similar conditions, mostly sunny, -2 and some fairly light winds. And that is it for us tonight and for this year. We are off for the next week, but we'll return to the air on Tuesday, January 2nd. In the meantime, you can always visit our website, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or download the CBC News app. We'll leave you now with some festive sights as we head into the holidays. Thanks so much for being with us in 2023. We'll see you in the new year. Good night.